Welcome to After the Show, your weekly movie podcast brought to you by A. Scully and Sid Talk. We're addicted to movies. Are you? Hello, Sid Talk. Welcome to After the Show. Hello, audience.
Well, shall I wait for them to reply?
But you'll be waiting a hell of a long time.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Hello, and almost Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you.
Well, by the time someone's listening to this, it will have to be New Year because you're not going to release it until the Monday, which is
New Year.
The 1st of January, 2024. The before the after the show discussion was not this. It was the movie-ish.
Yes.
And something else that you were investigating. Oh, the lyrics of Do They Know It's Christmas?
Yes.
Because it always bothers you.
Yes.
And so if you want to look up any controversy over the Do They Know It's Christmas by the, who were they? Band-Aid?
Band-Aid, yes.
Band-Aid. Back in the 80s. Look it up and then you'll find immediately what the controversy really, well, one of them at least.
The clanging chimes of doom.
The clanging chimes of doom. But they, thank God it's them instead of you is a very unsettling sign.
Yes.
Sang by a bunch of millionaire famous people in hopes of, I don't even know what.
Go and investigate it, and you'll see that they dig themselves out of the hole.
You'll be like, what? Who? Bob, what were you thinking?
All right, so it is Friday, December the 29th. This is After the Show 819. We're a movie review podcast. Every single week we look at a new movie. And this week we're looking at the new movie, Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire. It's a 2023 release. You can watch it now on Netflix, PG-13. And Sid Talk, give us a synopsis of the movie Rebel Moon, Part 1, A Child of Fire.
Does an oppressive force in the galaxy/universe? We see a wormhole type situation, so I'm guessing it's not just one galaxy. We have to travel around, and the Supreme King of all things has died, and he has a regent who now wants to continue to dominate and rule everything with a very firm and bloody hand. And so they're hunting out rebels, thus the name Rebel Moon, and anyone who might want to rise against them. And then we have a pack of people who are resisting. Is that good enough? Is that enough? Is that everything? That's everything.
Yes. All right. I'll give you the real one off the Netflix box.
Okay. Netflix box.
Which would be the television, right? The box.
True. Oh, nice.
When a peaceful settlement on the edge of a distant moon finds itself threatened by the army of a tyrannical ruling force, a mysterious stranger living amongst the villagers becomes their best hope for survival.
Okay.
I mean, that's pretty much what it is too. Sounds familiar. Let's preface this by saying I'm a Zack Synder fan.
You are.
And originally this movie was pitched by Zack Synder to Lucasfilm as a Star Wars movie. Where it might sound familiar, even from that synopsis, well, that sounds like a Star Wars movie. That's because it kind of is.
See, I feel like that's not fair because, like I've said many times, George Lucas didn't invent the idea of an oppressive regime and rebels. So it's not just like, oh, it's not Star Wars. It's just not any of that. It's its own thing. Even though he did pitch it to Star Wars people. Yeah,
and then altered it. Right, so Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, what did you think?
I enjoyed a lot of the... It's a tough one. I didn't love it.
Right.
So, okay, here are the weaknesses. A lot of the special effects are really awful to me, to my eyeballs. The way he did the fuzzy edges of every scene almost, I think that's really amateur and lazy. And if they're trying to be trendy like he does sometimes,
I mean,
it looked
all
like
of
shit.
His films have that kind of look.
Yeah, it looks like shit. And a lot of the special effects or background or whatever of scenes, because we're talking about out in space, different planets, on spaceships, etc. I was in the mind of I'm watching old, cheap Doctor Who or old cheap space movies and television shows that we see on things like Svengoolie or on the
I
channels
agree
that we
with
get.
that.
Yeah. And that really distracts from then the opposite, which is beautiful things like the weapons and the robots are gorgeous and detailed carving, as if the civilizations who have made the weapons and the robots and the high-tech stuff are still using craftsmanship and artistry, right?
Yeah.
That was gorgeous and lovely. And then the difference is too much leaning toward my eyeballs being completely and constantly disappointed.
I also thought, in terms of visuals, some of it does look really good, and then the next scene can look, the next shot even can look bad.
Yeah.
He knows how to make a thing look cool, but then it doesn't seem like the technology is Star Wars, for instance. When you watch Star Wars, newer Star Wars, older Star Wars, they really put an effort into special effects, and they look good.
Well,
even the 70s ones look
old
good.
Star Wars looks pretty crappy.
Oh, models we're looking at in that one.
Yeah, but they look pretty crappy when you look at them now, and that's fair. That's what they had to
But
use.
this kind of had...
But we've seen enough movies in the last 20 years that keep progressing to where your eyeballs are completely, your brain is completely convinced that you're looking at a guy on a giant bird flying through the air, and this didn't have that. And so if the balance is tipped for me, where more of my mind is being occupied with literally 85% of the screen full of bad special effect or bad blurry shit or sun glares or whatever the fuck they're called, and all I'm supposed to be focusing on is like one little human person standing in the distance, and that's the only thing that's clear and has any light on it, then I'm out. Like, my brain is out. I'm not convinced I'm in a world. I'm not convinced I'm watching characters. I'm convinced I'm watching a director and an art director and a cinematographer who are trying to be really snotty and intellectual and artsy craftsy with it, and that irritates me. So then I have to come back to the movie. My brain has to swash back and forth, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's in a full bucket of water and like sloshing around like, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's okay.
Now, I'm always in for a new sci-fi thing, though. I do like sci-fi.
Sci-fi and zombies are my favorite.
And I didn't hate this movie. It's clearly not my favorite Zack Snyder movie, but I do like the idea of a band of people getting together to fight like an oppressive thing.
Always.
But my problem with the movie, and it's not really the special effects, this is the first half. It's a 2-half movie. That's why it's called Part 1, A Child of Fire. They don't spend enough time with each person that they meet.
Correct.
So they don't mean anything by the time it gets to the end.
They're very two-dimensional.
Yeah, so it's like little vignettes almost. It's like, let's go and get a person. When we get to the place, the person has to do something, and then we take them with us. But it's only about 5-10 minutes, and you don't really care about them.
Correct.
I cared about the lady with the hat.
Right, with the fiery blades.
Who fights the big spider, which I thought was the coolest part of the whole movie.
What I wanted was, how about if we convert the spider to be on our team?
Yeah.
She was very Borg lady, but she was a spider.
The fight with the spider was my favorite part.
Oh, I thought it was really awful.
And I was glad there was different things interwoven into the movie. But I do feel like we're never going to care about, once we get our bunch together at the end, there's a battle, which is pretty small scale, to be fair. By the time they get to that, we're only really care about our main lady.
Oh, did you care about her?
In a way.
I feel like that was missing for me, unfortunately.
I mean, the beginning part where she goes apeshit after a lady is about to get assaulted.
The beginning part had potential. Yeah, for sure.
I kind of liked her after that. But you're right, even her, she's a bit...
flat.
Boring.
Yeah.
And she shouldn't be boring. She's the coolest fucking thing in it.
She's not got... Well, not she. It's not her to blame.
No,
Everyone does their thing to be the character they are. I have no flaws with... I don't think with any performances. They're a bit melodramatic, right? So we're kind of pretending we're in high Shakespearean
There's
play.
some bad dialogue, let's say.
Yeah, there's some bad dialogue. You can't blame the person performing for that. So they seem like they're all in. I'm okay with the performances and like the intensity. It just seems a bit much at times. And then, of course, we round things off with levity every time, which is so boring. Like, if you're going to go all in and have a ruthless dude who's going around literally murdering some of the good guys in front of everybody else to intimidate them, right? So we're talking Negan level here.
Yeah.
Beating
murdering people.
Glenn into the ground, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to rely on the lazy little tool of a few scenes later, like somebody making a joke or being funny. Like, you don't need that anymore. No. And yet it just kept bouncing like that again. Like, oh, let's just drag us up out of this. Either you're all in with the like evil, maniacal, somebody who wants to literally run the universe, who would be ruthless, right? Mm-hmm. There's no happy, free-spirited, hippy-dippy people running the universe. It's not going to happen, right? You only got maniacal, horrific creatures, people, humans, whatever they are. I don't know what planet all these people are from. If you're going to balance a movie out with intensity and humor, then everything needs to be the right levels. If you're going for somebody literally being uber violent, and then, oh, ha, 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 ha. Yeah. Isn't that a funny joke we've just told with blood on our face? Like, it doesn't, unless you're doing it so ironically that it's obvious, like a Saturday Night Live skit or something, but they weren't. And it just was out of whack, you know, but I do love, you know me, I love science fiction. We're not talking about any space and time specifically. So like, we don't know what part of the universe, there's no mention of Earth or anything like that, or time, right? There's no like, this is the 3000th century or anything like that. So I love that somebody's taken an idea, but then when you know that he was trying to write an episode of Star Wars saga, it just bleeds through really hardcore. Does. If you don't know it ahead of time, you're probably thinking it while you're watching it, and it also would lessen it.
I think you're definitely thinking it, aren't you? Because there's too many things that seem like they're from Star Wars.
I mean, you've got the robot with the personality, like C-3PO. You've got the person who's what used to be bad.
Literally laser swords.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
and the characters, and again, you know, George Lucas and Star Wars didn't invent the idea that a regime needs to be broken. Like, that's not new. That's humans. We've started that forever, but it just feels like it's slapping you in the face. So to change it, I would have liked more than just change the names of the planets, because this is what it felt like you did. Change the names of the planets so nothing's familiar, like Hoth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you don't talk about Darth Vader or the Emperor, so we learn that. But we've got the Senate, so this dickhead wants to be in the Senate again. Like, is there a universal Senate? Like, we have no reference for this whatsoever.
Always
is there an actual
Senate.
Governing body of a dictatorial rule? No, it's just stupid. That's just stupid. Sorry, Zach, but my goodness. I feel like it just was style over substance and not that much style. People
say that a lot about Zack Snyder films. They're style over substance.
Right.
I mean, you could take that back to 300. It's a lot of style, isn't it?
Right, but 300 had something else.
It did. It had a unique...
It had all of it was the same kind of weird and in your face and like titillating of your mind, you know, like, oh, like all the like... I don't know the mystery of what the story was because I didn't know. I mean, I don't know of it, obviously, but this is like a mishmash of Zack Snyder got a bunch of money and he got permission to make a movie because Netflix wants a cool Zack Snyder movie. And we're going to do space and robots, a robot with a flower thing on his head. You know, and again, this is going to sound like contrary to what I've been saying, but I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it like under duress.
It's absolutely a popcorn movie.
And I ate a whole big bowl of popcorn. Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the things people don't like about Zack Snyder is the movie Sucker Punch, which I happen to really love. I think it's my second favorite of his movies. And what they complained about that movie was that it felt like a series of vignettes, which it actually is because it's going inside these women's minds, remember?
Yeah.
And each woman has a different scenario going on. So it works in that respect. I feel like this movie is really close to that movie, except the series of vignettes are disjointed and boring, picking up each person along the way.
Right.
And every person has to have a thing.
So we're putting together a ragtag group of rebels.
To defeat whatever it is, which Sucker Punch was the same thing.
But they're not very interesting.
Right.
When we get to the general, he literally just is sitting there. Yeah. And then she goes, don't you want to get revenge? And then he's like, okay. Whatever. The other lady fought a whole fucking human spider.
Yeah, I was actually disappointed. I felt like there was something chopped out of it. Because they had a big coliseum going on.
Yeah.
That they never used. I was like, well, there's a big Colosseum there. Is this guy going to fight for his freedom or something?
Maybe that sounds like trite.
Feels like something was missing there. I was like, oh, that's it? He stood up?
Yeah, all she did was give him a little talking to.
Here's a talk. Oh, and now I've stood up. And now I've had a shower in the next
shave.
scene.
I've shaved off my hair. I've washed off the mud.
But why go to a big Colosseum that look cool?
And also, they said he was in charge of the Colosseum. Okay, here's a sideline of this whole movie, right? So part of the story is they're going to go find this general who used to fight for the king and then turned against the king, the maniacal king or the regent. I can't remember. It got lost in the details. So when he then took his entire army of his out of the, being under the king, well, they were all slaughtered or murdered except for him, apparently, right?
Right.
So he now feels the guilt.
He sat and got dirty for a while?
Right, but then the story is he runs a Colosseum.
Yes.
And one time somebody went to see him and he chopped off their head and put it on a spire outside the Colosseum just to warn people to leave him alone. Right. That's what we know about the general, right? About Digimon, this general guy who runs a Colosseum. We show up, he's drunk, passed out on the floor, and one lady points him out to us. He's not doing anything. Then some lady gives him a bath, and then he's going with us.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Weird.
It's too abbreviated.
But I don't even understand how you could, in your editing process, be even remotely satisfied.
There has to be something cut out of that section. Yeah. Yeah. And other sections.
But I mean, it's not magic. Someone sat in front of computers and chose to leave it at that, which was really questionable.
He has said later on there will be a director's cut. No, you can't say that. Yeah. It has to be right in the first place.
I mean, you can say it.
Your original movie, though, has to make sense.
Yeah.
And have the detail in it. You can't say, well, I filmed all the detail, but that'll be later.
You're coming over to my dark side where I say, if the story's not right, it's not right.
And maybe the director's cut fixes everything, but don't go into making a movie thinking you're going to make a movie and then later make a better movie. I
guess a lot of directors might do that, but he had full reign, right? Netflix wanted him. He did whatever he wanted. Yeah, it's not like
they said, or maybe they did. Well, from what I heard is they said, don't make it R-rated. This original one.
Right.
Which it is not, even though it does deal with some themes, including
men who are threatening to rape a young woman, which seemed very old-fashioned, but I guess if you're wanting to make any men seem like bad guys who need to have their heads chopped off, it is to have them threaten a woman with sexual assault / rape, right? Yeah. That makes you want to kill them, like immediately, as it should. But it seemed like a very lazy way of having us turn against what it is, like the little group of soldiers who are sent to the little village to control the villagers, to grow the food, to feed this army, right? And then, of course, a couple of these soldiers turned out to be complete and utter assholes who needed to have their heads chopped off and their necks slashed, which is what happened. But then having them resort to the age-old, hey, well, we'll just make them bad because they're very threatening. Fair enough. That's horrible. But there's a lot of range of ways to make people seem like really bad human beings, and that just seemed like a little bit of a shortcut.
As I was watching the movie, I know he was inspired by many different things, but I kept thinking of those things. I'm like, oh, there's the cowboy movie.
Oh, right.
There's the samurai movie. There's the video game part. There, it just felt like somebody who'd watched a lot of things and played a lot of games and went, all those cool bits that I've ever seen, and putting all them in one thing. And I kept getting that. When you start thinking about that when you're watching the movie, that is...
Yeah, you're tuned out.
Tuned out, yeah.
Yeah.
Those were the problems I had. Maybe the second part will bring me round.
It doesn't matter, because any movie should be able to stand on its own.
I don't mean the director's cut of this. I mean the actual rest of the story.
That's what I'm saying. A second version, just like watching a TV show. The third episode shouldn't save it. Every episode, if you're doing a series of movies, every single movie needs to stand on its own. If it doesn't tell the whole story, it needs to tell its own story.
And this does, in that respect.
I mean, it doesn't. I don't understand why any of these people are valuable, why the guy turned against them, who he was, because he turned out to start acting like another army guy, and we have no hint of that. And we don't know why the bad guy is so, there's a lot missing from this story.
There are definitely questions at the end, yeah.
not just questions, and it's all the way through. Like, why is this person doing this? And it was like shortcuts everywhere you look. Every page of the script had shortcuts.
Also, interestingly, it tries to be brutal, graphic, and adult. Yet every time it gets to start doing that, it doesn't do it. As in the woman getting assaulted at the beginning, or when they're in the bar and that guy, that weird alien guy, clearly wants to have sex with our man who's with him. It doesn't ever go that far. The sequence where she kills them all in the barn, those guns are so insane. Your head would blow off if you got shot with one.
I'm not sure about that. I think it was reasonable that it was like a fire laser shooter, protoplasm or something that shoots right through you. And so it would shoot through you and cauterize you. And I don't know that there would be blood. I'm trying to overanalyze it now.
She also stuck a standard dagger in a man with no blood coming out of it.
True. No blood anywhere. True.
So, and that's the same throughout the whole movie. It's just people fall over, basically. And maybe some explosion effect in the background. It doesn't really commit to being graphic, because his original pitch was like, I wanted a graphic Star Wars movie. Like, what if Star Wars was an adult type thing?
But I mean, it's not Star Wars, so he could have done whatever he wanted.
He said to Netflix, I'll do it really graphic, but then we'll make this like sanitized version that we'll put out. And then later we'll put out the graphic one, and then I can sell it twice. That's how it feels a little bit.
Oh, that sounds cynical.
So let's go on to the cast. Sophia Boutella plays Cora. She's our heroine. What do you think? I liked her in Kingsman, by the way.
Everybody's fine, but also very flat.
She delivers some of the lines pretty flatly. And sometimes when she's supposed to be really like, I'm into this shit, it's too much. Like she's being over the top.
But you know it's not the fault, I suppose, of the performer. If the director and everyone around isn't raising you to a different standard, or everything you do, they're just like, oh, that's it. Wrap, take, cut, whatever. That's great. If that's their standard, and I always go back to Peter Jackson, who has a very low standard for a lot of things, then that's it. That's what you get. And I feel like he didn't direct people to have like, it's either flat or melodramatic. Those are the only two. There's no like middle ground of just like easing into these characters. Ed Skrein plays Attica Noble. He's like the mustache twirling Nazi general, basically, isn't he? Yeah, without a mustache.
Yeah, but really, really cartoon character.
Yes.
Which it probably...
cartoon character is a good way. I thought they all felt like they were coming off the pages of a graphic novel.
Which kind of works, because that's what it kind of is. But...
Is it?
I mean, it's supposed to be like a space comic.
No, it's not. It's supposed to be a script of a movie. It wasn't a graphic novel, right?
No.
All right, so no, it's supposed to be a movie.
Digimon Hounzu plays Titus. Blink, he's not really anything.
They wasted him.
Also, during the battle at the end, he shot like a couple of times, and that was it.
And then he had a bottle of booze hanging off of his pants.
And they kept making sure you saw that he kept drinking the booze.
Yeah.
Michael Huisman as Gunnar. He's the guy who's along with her at the beginning. What do you think of him?
Boring. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but oh my goodness.
Charlie Hunnam, who plays Kai. What do you think of him? He's an Irish, I was thinking he was like a Han Solo kind of character, but...
I mean, he's interesting-ish, but again, like cartoony and out of place. It doesn't fit with the tone of any other scenes at all, or with her tone of how she deals with him as she becomes coy and flirty, which is not how she is. I mean, it's very weird.
Yeah, it is a bit weird.
That's not his fault, but I'm just saying it's all wrapped around his scenes. And so, again, just kind of like meh.
Bai Duna plays Nemesis. She's the lady with the hat and the laser swords. I do like the imagery of her, but she doesn't really, again, get any backstory much.
She's a little bit Kill Bill. She's just intense and on a mission, and that's it.
The way she looks is awesome. And he films like the cool where she's silhouetted against the thing. I like all that. It speaks to me. But I need to know who she is and what really is the deal with her. Because basically we go and meet her, she has a fight with the thing, and then she's in the team, which is exactly what everybody...
And then at one point, the team's carrying crates out for him.
Right.
I mean, that seems... I was like, what?
Yeah.
What
it
is
does
going
feel
on?
like it got chopped up a bit, doesn't it?
Well, no, I'm saying the tone of these characters being these mega warriors and big, important characters within the worlds where they live.
Saying,
and now the guy goes, yeah, we need to carry these crates out. And then they're just carrying crates out for him.
Well, they've got to do the
weird.
day-to-day duties.
No, it was very weird.
Anthony Hopkins is the voice of Jimmy. He's also the narrator at the beginning of the movie. I really like the robot Jimmy. Thought it was a really good thing in this movie. It's just very small, underutilized.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably be in the next movie. Do you reckon?
Don't know. I don't think it should rely on the next movie. So I feel like it wasn't enough. And also was very two-dimensional. Like, oh, we have a robot who someone has announced that the robot cannot harm anyone who is there to defend the king or the late king, because it's established early on that the king has been murdered. He tells us that. Well, then you know that he's going to go against that, because that's what robots in Star Wars / futuristic things do. They don't stick to their programming, right?
Yep.
And then that's it. You don't have it. There's nothing else. So no, I didn't find him that interesting. His metal work was gorgeous, but of course that's all CGI. But I mean, he was gorgeous, and
he has the most touching scene in the whole movie where his cheek lights up.
Yeah, but it seemed really flat to me too.
I liked it, that part. Directed by Zack Synder, Man of Steel, Sucker Punch, Watchmen, Dawn of the Dead. What do you think?
I don't know, Zach. We might need to have a talk. Now, if you're making this is going to sound really insulting, so everyone prepare for Zack Synder to send me something terrible in an email. But if you're making a movie so people can just watch it on their phone and not really care, there you go. I mean, there we go. I feel like he's out. It's like, what's the saying? Don't let the cart get ahead of the horse, right?
Right.
The cart is a big story that's told well with lots of depth, and you're really, really into the world and the universe, and you're committed, and it's lush and full of, like, you want to know what's going to happen, and you're interested in every corner of the screen. He's got that potential. He's got that big story.
Yes, because...
And yet either his ability or his sensibilities, his own taste level overrides the potential, and it dampens it down so much. It's just such a shame.
I still think Watchmen is his best movie.
Because everything fit yet again. And
that's not his property. He's just doing somebody else's property, but his visual style really fit that movie.
Right. And again, a lot of style.
Yes.
And the substances of what the characters and the story is of that. So, I don't know. I wanted the idea to be equal to the execution. Is that how you say that?
Yes. All right. So, IMDb reviews. These are the reviews from people on IMDb who give the movie 1 out of 10. First guy says, dumb.
That's it?
No, that's not it. That's the title.
Okay.
Fight scenes and special effects are not a substitute for a plot. In a world where man has mastered interstellar travel and robotics, these same people don't even know how to farm for themselves. In a world with hundreds of planets, a small moon with about 25 people will feed an entire army.
That's fair. That's a fair statement.
That's the
I'm going to give
thing.
this reviewer a thumbs up.
A 1 star, 10 stars out of 1.
Yeah, 10 stars. I'll give him a 5 out of 10 for that. It's an average but correct review.
Second guy says, the picture is nice, but the screenplay and character development are non-existent. The movie where the anti-hero is more authentic, you might see a lot of them waste of 90 minutes. That one doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make, I get what they're saying,
yeah.
Where the villains are more interesting, I can't disagree with that either.
Next guy says, if you were here to watch an original new franchise set in space, then don't bother. The vast majority of the movie's world building is a one-to-one plagiarism of Dune. From the way the Empire is structured to the very leadership of it, almost everything world building related is stolen from something else.
I felt a lot of Dune reference, yeah.
In the best case scenario, you can say Zack Synder plagiarized Dune and mixed it with elements from other things like Warhammer 40k, Star Wars, The Matrix. It goes on and on and on throughout the entire movie. It's the most egregious case of blatant writing theft I've ever seen Hollywood commit. Don't waste 2 hours of your time.
Oh, waste your time. I don't feel like it was a waste of my time, no matter how many shitty things I've said.
No.
I like to see the potential of ideas, like of future ideas. It just wasn't fulfilled fully.
All right. We didn't see any extras because we just watched the Netflix streaming. So let's give this movie a score. I'm going to give Rebel Moon Part 1, The Girl on Fire, the Child of the Moon, something like that.
The Golden Child.
Yes. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
I was, but now that I've talked about it, I'm going to have to go 4.8.
Well, we're pretty close again.
Yeah.
Do we have the same brain?
A quarter of a century of marriage, nearly, can mold you together.
Thank you to Netflix. Next week, we're going to look at another movie. It is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, The Girl on Fire, The Golden Child.
Not The Golden Child. That's this one.
I'm just adding lots of, fire and gold and girl. And
I just want new stuff. I know I should write it myself.
Well, you haven't seen The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes yet.
Yeah, but I know how it ends.
Might be the greatest Hunger Games you've ever seen.
It doesn't matter because I know the end of the story.
Well.
So it doesn't matter. I mean, it might be a fine use of my entertainment consumption life. I get that. However, any prequel, you already know what the fuck's going to happen.
Well, come back here this time next week and see how Sid talks.
It doesn't mean I won't like it. It means that I want something to spring up that's there's nothing new under the sun, someone once said. Someone very unimportant. I'll say it now so everyone will remember that I invented that saying. But there just is nothing new, but I would like people to try. Let's try.
All right, movie recommendations. I am going with Watchmen by Zack Synder. It's my favorite Zack Synder movie. And Sofia Boutella is in a movie called Kingsman, the original one. And that is awesome. And she is awesome. Do you remember in that one, she had prosthetic legs? She was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's really cool in that movie. So she's also in Atomic Blonde, which is one that you really love.
I do.
So, yeah, Kingsman and Watchmen. Movies with men in them.
Yeah. And not good men. There's some bad men in those movies.
Yes.
And I am going to, I don't know what my theme for 2024 is going to be, but for today, for this week, because it is New Year and there are movies in theaters. Well, the year I was born, 1967, these are some of the movies that I have seen since 1967. Not obviously between November and December when I was born. That would have been in the theaters New Year's Eve, the year that I was born. And we've got The Jungle Book. Now,
yes.
That's the original animated Jungle Book. Dr. Dolittle, also the original, not the Eddie Murphy version. Bedazzled, which is, I think they did a remake of that also with
Elizabeth Hurley and Brendan Fraser.
Yes, Brendan Fraser. So I've seen the original of that also. It's like the lady is the devil, I believe. Son of Godzilla, which is like such a terrible... I mean, we've seen it on either Svengoolie or one of our cheap channels that we watch, that
it's
we can
fun.
get through Plex. It is, but it's so bad. But it was in the theater. And then The Graduate was also in the theater when I was born. So
now that is an excellent movie.
I love it when people say, oh, I've never seen The Graduate. It's before my time. Well, guess what, mofo? It was before my time, too, but I've still seen it.
And before mine. And I saw it, too.
Are you saying I'm old?
Yes.
I am older than you, yes. So that's what I'm not recommending them on quality, just that I've seen them and they were in the theater. People were in the theaters probably at midnight on New Year's Eve of the year I was born watching some of these movies.
All right. Hey, Scully stuff. I've been playing a game this week called Rough Justice 84. Did you see any of this game?
I don't think so.
Well, what it is you are running a security agency in the 1980s. How about that? Have you ever played a game that has that for a premise? Probably not. So how it works is it's on the PlayStation 5 where I'm playing it. It's almost like, not almost like, it is like one of those board games that people play. The tabletop kind of role-play games where everything that you do in the game is rolls of dice. You send like you get a bunch of people together. It's in the 80s. There's things to deal with on this big map. So you send somebody to a place and it'll say, we're a security firm. There's been people breaking in here. Now you've got to solve it. And then it gives you a little puzzle kind of thing with dice rolling and you can either succeed or not. And it's not just random because there are things you can use to make the dice better or make you have more rolls. And once you've finished the little roll, you level up your character. You get more characters, so you've got more people in your agency. But it's not like a video game that you would think of. It's like a 3D board game. You could definitely play this on your own tabletop with if there was a game of it. But it's a 80s noir-inspired strategy game. It's not like anything I've ever played before. I'm not too sure if I'm 100% into rolling dice to have an action happen because, it's a lot of random chance, isn't it? You can't be better at it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's one of the problems I have. But I have been going through it. I've been
Tell
playing
that to all the people who shoot craps in Vegas every day.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no skill there.
Yeah, it's not. You can't get better at it. It's just chance, right? So know that before you're going in that there's a lot of chance going on, and you might fail a lot. I actually restarted the game twice because it went really, really badly for me. And I was like, am I missing something here? I realized I'm not missing something. It either goes bad or it doesn't. It's just about dice rolling at the end of the day. So it's called Rough Justice 84. It's out on consoles and Steam. It costs $10 at the moment because there's a Steam sale. So that's it. Rough Justice 84. Sid Talk. What's for dinner?
Potato soup.
I like potato soup. I will eat it. Thank you. What is your advice?
My advice isn't advice. You know how it works.
Yes.
I don't know if everyone is like this, but there's often an overriding sort of thing that's on your mind, a filter, if you will, of how you view things and cope with things and deal with people and blah, blah, blah. Some people use a religion or a political view or a philosophy or, whatever traumas they've had, the coping that they're doing is the filter, or the leftover trauma or post-traumatic stress, whatever it is, that's the thing that everything filters through and that often reaches out to grab any experience you're having and go, oh, here, let me examine that for you, right? Let me just tell you what you're going to think about this, or,
Right.
And my number one thing is I don't believe in anything, right? I don't believe in any gods or spirits and it doesn't mean I don't believe in anything I cannot see. It means that in the absence of any other explanation of anything that you might say, oh, but this happened to me once and there was no explanation, then I would say, oh, then there's no explanation, right? That's my mind. Nothing has an ultimate purpose or meaning. It's not the filter that my mind works with. That is the filter my mind works with, I suppose. That there isn't everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Because I don't think that either. Every single moment is different. And in this moment, if you have a success or a failure or a good thing or a bad thing, then that's this moment. And 5 minutes from now, there's not a fucking thing you can do about 5 minutes ago. You cannot. Now, if you want to make amends because you've done something horrible or you're going to get punished for doing something horrible, fair enough. I'm all for that, right? But you cannot change what has happened. And to just this glossy thing that I feel like is some people's filter, it'll be fine. Everything will be fine. It'll all be fine. It'll be okay. I just cannot get my head around it. I just can't. Because you know what? Things that aren't okay, you'll find a way to deal with it. And pretending it's okay doesn't deal with it. That's just not, I can't approach things that way. I don't dilute things. I don't try to hide away from things. It's boom, hit me in the face. I'm either going to feel it and it's going to crush me and almost destroy me. And then I will find a way to claw back out of it. And that is how I approach all the things. And so it seems kind of cold-hearted sometimes, or I'm distant, or I'm very flat about trying to remind people of real life instances. If you tell me a story and something is bad and you're sad about something, well, there's someone else in this world and it's not a competition. But if you can learn from other people and how they cope or the end of their stories, even if they've dealt with the same or similar thing, then that gives you something to hang on to and to use, right? Again, nothing new under the sun. Someone else has had the same pain that you've had, and maybe you can learn how to use that to lift yourself up out of the thing. And I just feel like sometimes thinking and pretending that everything's going to be fine and hiding away from it or leaning on filters that do not solve the problems causes more problems. And I'm not a guru and I'm not a philosopher. I'm not anything. But sometimes if you just confront it and deal with it and then keep going, that's all you've got, really. And the universe keeps going. Like, it seems really harsh to say the universe doesn't care. It's neutral, right?
Right.
Nature is neutral. Storms, weather, the earth, all of it's neutral. It doesn't care about us little precious humans. We think so highly of ourselves. It just goes on and on and on. So in the meantime, maybe the best thing to do is take a step back from a trauma or a sad thing or your frustrations and be like, I can deal with this. I can figure this out without pretending it doesn't exist. I don't even know what advice I'm trying to give here, but
me neither.
It's the way I approach life, and it seems to be working. And so there's your Happy New Year.
All right, thank you, Sid Talk. ascully.com is the place you can go to get this podcast. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm A Scully. She's Sid Talk. We're on there. We're also on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and even a YouTube channel with the podcast. You can also go to ascully.com, which is our main website, and all the links to the podcasts are all there. Email ascully@ascully.com for feedback. No? Email your feedback to ascully@ascully.com. Don't email Sid Talk. She doesn't want your email.
All things are meaningless.
And stay classy, Mr. Zack Synder. I hope the second part of this movie is more. I wonder if the second part will be more than a 5 out of 10. Let's see in a couple of months.
We'll see. And I'm going to say think for yourself, because if you're not doing it, someone's doing it for you. And here's best wishes for you in 2024.